What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. This is episode number 123, and my special guest is Malachi Kanfer. Malachi has served as the cantor at Sutton Place Synagogue in Midtown Manhattan since 2020. Malachi is a graduate of the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, where he performed many operatic roles in both Oberlin and in Italy. Malachi lives in New York City with his beloved dogs, James and Abby. I am honored to have him as a guest with me on the My Stuttering Life podcast. Welcome, Malachi Kanfer.
Hi, Pedro. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Sir, the honor is all mine. Thank you. We have a lot of topics to cover, and I am super excited. So let's get started.
Can't wait.
Okay, sir. So do you remember when you first began to stutter?
Yeah, I don't know how completely conscious the memory is, but I know it really began to happen severely when my mom went on a trip for a couple weeks away from home when I was 7 years old. And I think pretty much as soon as she left on the trip and I realized it, I began to have a lot of blocks, and the severity of the blocks in my speech really increased. I think I had always had some, and I had always had some disfluencies, but it got really severe and life-changing then.
Does it run in your family? Are there any other family members who stutter?
Yeah, I have a great uncle who stutters. And although not as severely as me, that's Uncle Paul. He plays piano. And my dad has hesitation in his speech, but it isn't a stutter. That's as much as I know.
All right, sir. Thank you for that. Have you ever had speech therapy in school? And if you did, was it helpful?
It wasn't in school, but when I first began having the severe issues as a kid, I went to a speech pathologist named Pam Cook, who I love. And I know I saw her on and off for years and years and years, and often I think my fluency would increase, or at least it would increase in the office with her. And then as time went on, after I stopped seeing her, or even just hopping back into the car with my dad, I would have a much harder time. And then I think I took a break for part of high school, and then I went to a program, an intensive program at Ohio State for a couple of months in the summertime. I think I was about to head to college, and I was like, I wonder if I can get this under control before I go to college. I think that work was mostly with rate, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it didn't have a lasting influence. And I think that's it for the most part.
As we are talking about school, because, school life, it can be stressful for a lot of people. However, for people who stutter, it's a little bit more stressful. How was school for you?
It was tough, and it wasn't tough because I was bullied or because people were mean. It was tough because I really wanted to hide my stutter and was deeply ashamed of my stutter. And so I think after a certain point, I didn't really talk in classes as much as I wanted to. And I think even when I did, I wasn't engaged academically the way I could have been, because I don't think I think my stutter interfered with my self-esteem and what I thought was possible about my future. And so I think I stopped engaging and caring so much. I think in the background you can probably hear the ambulance. I live in New York, so
oh yes, sir.
It's a common.
It's all good, sir. It's all good.
Common thing.
As we are talking about school, did you have to read out loud?
Yeah, sure. That's a really common thing. Yeah, and it was something where you're always, counting the number of people ahead of you to see what portion you're going to be asked to read out loud, and you feel your heart pounding every time. This is something that I think isn't entirely uncommon for people who are fluent too. I teach all the time now, and I'll ask kids to read in Hebrew, and kids often hate reading out loud in Hebrew out loud. Reading out loud in Hebrew out loud? Reading out loud in Hebrew. But in any case, yes, counting the number of people ahead, being very anxious about it, knowing that, what's on the page in front of you is what you have to read, so you can't change words, and you're just you're locked into it, all that.
How did you handle the introductions on day one of school?
One thing that I think I made a choice on early on is my name in Hebrew, as you call me, is pronounced Malachi, and that's always been a really hard name for me to say. And so I've gone by other names and introduced myself as other names, like Malachi, which is how you pronounce it in English, or Mick, or I went by Max for a period of time. I was named after a Max. And so one way of trying to deal with and to survive the anxiety of introducing myself was introducing myself with a name that might be a little bit easier to say. But it was always hard. I think I probably stuttered on my name most of the time anyway.
Oh, I mean, let me tell you, Malachi, on day one, intros, I did it one time, and it was a disaster. I mean, all the kids were laughing at me and pointing at me and calling me Porky Pig. And so I told myself, this will never happen again. And so what I did, it's only for me because, it is called survival. And so what I did to have myself all protected is I skipped the first 2 days of school, all 12 years. I did it in undergraduate school, and I did it in graduate school. And so on the third day, Malachi, I would walk in and, I would just, find my desk and blend into the background. So I did that for 16, 17, 18, 19 years. Holy mac and cheese. 19 years. Yeah. But I mean, we are all different. And for me, I had to protect myself. Because that one time in 1975, you don't forget that kind of trauma, sir. You don't forget it.
Yeah.
And so I had to do what I had to do in order to survive. And that is what I did for a very long time. So,
yeah.
Okay. So do you have any advice for parents, teachers, and speech therapists with regards to children who stutter?
I think the advice that I have more than anything is just to make sure that the child knows that however they talk, however it comes out, that it's okay. That if you're patient and in that any way that a person talks is beautiful and it's not a thing that a child needs to fix. Would you agree with that?
I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, that is, I mean, that is, great advice, because when I was in speech therapy, in the late 1970s, the whole goal was to have me speak like everybody else. And therefore I felt like I was all broken and that I had to be fixed Yeah. And so, oh yes, sir. I mean, that is great advice.
I mean, we can definitely understand too, parents wanting their kids to have an easier life and not having to deal with stuttering. But I think it's pretty clear to me that fluency can't be the goal of speech therapy at any age.
Ooh, sir, I 100% agree. Awesome. Yeah. I thank you, sir. All right, so we are going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about employment. So, had you ever experienced discrimination?
I don't think so. I'm thinking about all the jobs that I've worked in my life. I'm lucky that for almost all of my jobs, the primary thing, or kind of the reason why I was hired, is that I sing. and I don't set better when I sing. And I've always felt very employable because of my singing. And so I don't know. But it's also interesting. I pursued a career, and kind of my educational and career arch after high school was all about singing. And I went to an area of strength and not to something where at the time I felt really handicapped in. I will say in college, I went to undergrad to study voice and opera. And I think kind of with the assumption that operas are all sung and I can just sing operas all the time. I don't have to think about talking. There are lots of operas where there is a lot of talking, and the singers and actors in the operas have to talk. And I wasn't cast in a lot of shows in college, and I wasn't cast in any shows where I had to talk. Was it because of my talking or because I wasn't that great of an opera singer? I don't know. But I was cast in talking roles in high school, but I was never cast in a talking role in college, which was kind of a professional track thing. I also might have just sucked at opera. I don't know.
I highly doubt that, sir. Highly doubt that. Okay, so let's talk about job interviews. I mean, job interviews are stressful for everybody. However, for us, it's a little bit more difficult. How did you navigate job interviews?
So I didn't really have a lot of job interviews. When I began as a cantor, so I'm a cantor. Cantor is a member of the Jewish clergy, and so you're invested or ordained, and you do a lot of the things that a rabbi does, which is the other member of the Jewish clergy. But the cantor is responsible for all the music in the synagogue, and they chant all the services, and in Hebrew, the prayers are entirely sung or chanted. And teach and officiate at life cycle events. So my first couple cantoring jobs, I didn't have a formal interview process at all. One, I was just kind of offered. The other one, I remember I had like a quick conversation with the rabbi who hired me. So the first time I went through a formal interview process for a cantor job was only in the last couple years, when I went on a job search that ultimately ended up with me being in Manhattan, where I am now. And it was interesting. Are there questions in particular that you have about the interviews and how I presented my stutter and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, sir.
Because I did a lot of them. Yeah. So the first interview that I had, and I won't go into all the details of the particular institutions, but the first interview, again, it felt like the first job interview that I'd ever had. And I emailed him beforehand and I said, hey, just FYI, I have a stutter. And I remember writing this email, first job interview, a big step in my career. I'm kind of taking this next step out of my comfort zone. In advance, I told him I stutter. They wrote back and said, if there's anything we can do to make you more comfortable, all these things, was really, really nice. And I log into the Zoom call. I'm really, really nervous. And it's like a panel of 8 or 9 people, and me at my first job interview. And I thought I had prepared for the interview, but it was not really a job that would have made sense that I would be prepared for in retrospect. It was a different branch of Judaism than I'm in, and for a lot of reasons, it was tough. They were already really at the end stage of their interview processes. Anyway, I was not prepared for that interview the way I thought I was, and I began to stutter so much. And there were questions that if I were feeling more fluent, I probably could have faked my way through a little more, but that was a mess. And then after that, I interviewed at probably 8 or 9 other places. Again, every time I told them in advance that I stuttered. And each of those places after that, I think either offered me a job or were going to offer me a job before I ultimately accepted the job that I took. I think. And as I often said on the interviews, like, the thing about stuttering is that it can be used as an asset to connect to people, because you're automatically vulnerable when you talk to people. And vulnerability is the magic sauce of connection. And I think that it's true. And so, I used it as a strength for some of the interviews they had me, come in, visit in person and give a speech in front of the community. And just every time, I disclose my stutter, and then you just keep on going. And it was all good. And I think by the end of the interview process, I gained a whole new understanding and a whole new, it was a jump in how I viewed my ability to talk in public and how to be comfortable and talk about my stutter in public. And I think I experienced a jump in self-esteem too. And just kind of this thought, it was like, whoa, like I can do this. I can do anything, right? Like, I'm not bound by my stutter anymore. I had already talked a lot in public in my previous job. I officiated at funerals and weddings and would give eulogies, and I was the head of our Hebrew school, so I talked constantly. But the interview process was really the thing that, among a lot of things, but it was kind of a culmination in some ways, but it got me over a lot of the fear of not being accepted because of my stutter. Again, though, I'm in a career where the primary attraction, I'm being hired, and maybe not in large part, I think I'm being hired because of who I am, like, as a person, but also because I sing. And it's not because I get up and I give speeches in front of people all the time. I do sometimes, but that's an interesting thing too.
See, and I am extremely happy to hear that in your initial job interview, they were extremely accommodating, and that is just awesome to hear, because, there are times where, that just does not happen. And, I've had job interviews where it was horrendous. It was, I don't know how I survived back then. However, after I would, go in and disclose and get that out of the way, then, I could focus on, all of what, they were asking me. And, you were talking about Zoom. Let's talk about our pandemic. It has, pushed people who stutter out of our comfort zones, because we are, no longer in the office having human interactions. We are now home. We have a headset. We have, the webcam, and now we have to do everything remotely. How did you navigate that new normal?
Well, I think for starters, not even talking about talking, the isolation was hard. I'm single, and I remember at first the isolation of that being really hard. I will say, I'm not sure. I don't think it had a big effect on how I stuttered or how I thought about my stutter. I don't think my stutter was more severe on Zoom or other forms of video chat than it is in person. I think the masks can be hard because sometimes people are more confused by stuttering when they can't see actually what's going on with my mouth. But I wouldn't say overall that I think about the pandemic having a large impact on my stutter in particular. I began my new job in Manhattan in July of 2020. So the first year of my job was almost entirely on Zoom. The first 8 or 9 months anyway. And so I met most of the people for the first time on Zoom. I led all the services on Zoom. We did like meet and greets on Zoom, where I met members of my congregation on Zoom for the first time. And I know that in person, it's much easier to do that kind of stuff in person for anyone. And it was harder on Zoom, and people would meet me in person for the first time and say, "Oh, you're so tall. Oh, you're so this. Oh, you're so that." And I think I'm a more effective communicator overall in person, as I think most people probably are. But it worked. It worked. And it was hard, but it worked.
One of the things that had helped me out, is I would have an icebreaker. So on Zoom, or Teams, when we would have, our meetings or presentations, I always had a really good icebreaker. And so I would say, "Hi, good morning. I'm Pedro Pena. I have a speech impediment. I have a stutter. So if at any time, if I get hung up on any word, I want you to give me 8 hours, and hopefully it'll come out. However, if you know what I'm trying to say, help you, help me, help you, because I believe that teamwork makes the dream work. And then also, if I have a block, it is not your internet connection. It's just Pedro having a block. And once I put that out there, I mean, everyone in there, I mean, they had a smile and they were receptive, and they were helpful and professional and courteous and compassionate. I mean, it was just awesome. But before every Zoom or every Teams, I would give that, I would do the icebreaker, and so that way I get it out there. And that way everyone knows, oh, he's just having a block. It is not my internet connection at home. So yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting, sir. Yes.
That sounds like a great icebreaker. I feel like when you're doing that, in my experience, sometimes I got tired of giving that introduction over and over again. Hi, I'm Cantor Malachi. Just so you know, I stutter. Happy to answer any questions about stuttering, but you're going to hear me block and pause, and sometimes my face will do things. And the best thing to do is just to wait and be patient, and words will come out. I'll get out what I need to say eventually. And I give that speech all the time, right? Like when I'm meeting new people, I do it. When I'm officiating at a funeral, and I say, hey, not hey, because it's a funeral, but I'm Cantor Malachi. It's my honor to be here. Just FYI, blah, blah, blah. And it's amazingly helpful, and it allows me to relax, and it helps everyone else relax, and it connects you to people and all these things. And also it's exhausting. Like it's like a lot of this, there are times when you wish you didn't have to do it too.
Oh, yes, sir. And I do it every day. I do it multiple times, per day. And my goal is education, because I can't hide this. There's no way, sir. There's no way that I can hide this. So I want to put it out there. And so that way everybody knows. Oh, it's just Pedro. He's having a block. He's having a repetition. So my eyes may close. My arms may go all over the place. That's okay. That's just Pedro. It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, and it is. It is exhausting and draining at the end of the day, sir. I have nothing. I am completely drained. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how about we go over some ADLs? ADLs are activities of daily living. I want to talk about how you handle the telephone, how you do at restaurants, and how you do in a drive-through.
Okay. The first one is the telephone.
Yes, sir.
That's what you said first, the telephone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Pedro, it's interesting. I call, I'm on the phone all the time, whether I'm calling congregants, and especially at a new job, there are congregants who you haven't talked to before necessarily in person. So I would say usually I will give the speech on the phone. Hey, just so I stutter. Just be patient, but not always. There have been times in my life where I have wanted to hide my stutter, and there have been times in my life where I've been more capable of hiding it than I am now. And sometimes I just want to get through it and not have to deal with it. And sometimes I'll be on the phone and I'll change words, and sometimes, but I would say my tolerance for that at this point in my life is pretty low. I think once you experience the sensation of being able to relax when you're allowing yourself to set that on the phone or at any time, it's pretty hard to go back. So yeah, I would say usually when I'm on the phone with someone who like it's important for work or I'm talking to for the first time, I will tell them that I stutter. Then there are, the phone conversations that you have where you're talking to the electric company or you're giving your credit card information or something. Usually I would say I will tell them, hey, I stutter once I start blocking. And sometimes it still comes out as like an apology, like, hey, I'm sorry, I stutter, just give me a second. And then I hang up and I'm like, why did I apologize? Because they always say, that's okay, sir, you can take your time. And I'm like, I know I can take my time. Like, why did I apologize? I mean, that's a really ingrained thing where, I don't know. At restaurants, I would say I still have urges to order things that I know I won't stutter on. But sometimes, I don't know. There are times when I will tell them I'll stutter. There are times that I don't. And I think part of it is that it's just hard to be vulnerable in every interaction that you have, and we always are. But sometimes, if you can just get by or survive in an interaction without having to use that energy, it can be easier. In a drive-through, I haven't gone to one recently for a couple of reasons. I live in Manhattan now. I sold my car, which was heartbreaking. And I'm not often at a drive-through anymore. When I have gone to them in the past, probably more than at any other time, more so than in a restaurant, it's very hard at a drive-through, right? Because they don't know, and they don't always have a camera looking at you. And so I would say that is the time where I would order what I didn't actually want to order the most.
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, I've been there. And then also if I'm in, a large, building, having, to go, run some errands and whatnot, I will hop into the elevator. And of course, there's always that one person in there, what floor? And as always, I can't really say the one that I want to go. So I'll just say, higher. And then I'll get off there and take the stairs and go down to the one that I want to go. So, I mean, the struggle is real, sir. Yes, sir. The struggle is real.
Yeah.
So do you think that it is important for people who stutter to have a thick skin?
Oh, I don't know. We can only be ourselves. I don't know if I'm someone who has a thick skin. I'm sensitive, not in ways where like I'm reactionary and get angry. I don't think I could like afford to get like, I don't know, but like, I'm very sensitive. I get hurt easily. I'm very emotional. I wouldn't call myself a person with thick skin. Thick in the sense that like, I can take a lot of crap, and put up with it and keep on going. but because that's just like what life is. Like you have to deal with a lot of hard stuff and keep on going. But in terms of interpersonal things, I get hurt easily, and I'm sensitive. And it's not that, and again, I wouldn't say then my instinct is to bounce it back at the other person with anger or with anything else. But I get very hurt inside. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir. Believe me, I can relate. So let's talk about secondaries. Do you do anything to help you if you have a block? There are many of us who will, tap our head and tap our desk or tap our leg. There have been times where I will have an accent. It's horrible. It's a horrible accent, but I will try whatever I can to help with the block. Have you ever experienced that before? And do you do it?
Yeah. I think I experimented as a kid with like the sensation of chewing gum. I think that might have been a recommendation from my speech pathologist. And I think there are things that I do, like avoiding eye contact or closing my eyes or any of the facial contortions that happen as I stutter, that could, those are things that could be characterized as secondary characteristics of the stutter. So I do those things. They often feel like they're not in my conscious control at this point. I don't have things like, counting with my fingers or trying to tap or tapping anywhere or any of those kinds of things. But yeah, I think there are things that are that are happening in my face in particular that are secondary to the block itself. I remember as a kid trying to watch for those things by, we would video me in the office of the speech pathologist, and I would watch myself, which was horrible. It's like the worst thing. Like I was chubby. I hated seeing my chubbiness, and then I hated watching myself stutter. So it was pretty horrible. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's it.
So do you ever go through phases in your speech? As in there are times where everything comes out and there are times when nothing comes out. Have you ever experienced phases in your speech?
Yeah, the answer is yes as a kid. I think as a kid, there were times when, and I don't know if I was fluent, but I'd be very capable for periods of time of hiding it. I would say as an adult, at least since I stopped trying to hide it, which started maybe in 2019, I think it's been pretty consistent, with the caveat of, I usually have a harder time in the morning, when I'm tired, if I'm sick. And I would say with a lot of those things, I often find a relationship to feeling those things and like my self-esteem or self-confidence, and often there's a relationship there. But I would say, since I stopped trying to hide it, it's been pretty consistent.
So I have a question. I have the answer. I know that you do, but I just want to ask it because I would be remiss if I did not cover this because, you are just phenomenal. So can you sing?
Yeah, I'm not warmed up at all. I slept in and I know it's already late. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm happy to sing. Is there anything you would like me to sing in particular?
Just anything opera. Just a little tidbit.
Opera?
Just a little tidbit.
Opera isn't really my thing anymore, but I can definitely sing opera. I can sing opera, then I have a guitar here.
Oh, awesome. What? Okay. Okay. How about this? You do whatever that you want to do. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm more than ready.
I'll do a little bit of both, okay?
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so first I'll sing a little bit of the Count's aria from the Marriage of Figaro, which is a Mozart opera. And then I'll play something folky on guitar, which is what I do most of the time now. Hai già vinta la causa, cosa sento in qualaccio in cadea. I remember this. Perfidi, io voglio di tal modo punirvi. My dog is starting to howl. I got you in mio. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to do.
Oh, that is amazing. That is amazing.
Let's see. What do I want to play on guitar? I mostly do Hebrew stuff now, Many's the time I've been taken, and many times confused. Is the guitar sound coming through on my headphones? I don't know. For certainly miss you. Yeah, but I'm alright. Just weary to my bone. Still you don't expect to be bright and born before. So far away, so far away from home. It's an American tune by Paul Simon.
I loved that. That is amazing, sir. That is amazing. Wow. I'm blown away. I'm sorry. I lost all train of thought. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's head back into this. All right. So here is a hot topic. All right. We have, a couple of hot topics, but here's the first one. So do you let others finish your sentences?
No, I don't. I mean, it happens the most with, I would say, kids who I teach, and I love the kids that I teach, and they're amazing kids. And so every once in a while, I just remind them to be patient and to let me get words out at my own pace, and then they're amazing. It happens with adults that I teach too, or just adults in general, and then I just give a gentle reminder. It is not always easy though, and I don't always do it. If, for example, I'm giving a person pastoral care, they've had a death, or someone in their family is sick, or they're sick, I'm trying to do everything I can for their needs. So yeah, my focus is on them and not what I need to be comfortable talking in the moment. And I would say in those moments too, I'm also most prone to change my words or that kind of thing, which is hard. So that's something I'm still trying to work out in me.
Do you ever experience negative self-talk? And if you do, how do you deal with that?
Only all the time.
Welcome to my world. Yes, sir. And proceed on, sir.
No, I think I'm very, very hard on myself. I always have been, in all kinds of ways, not only my talking. I would say in every way, I'm really, really hard on myself, and much harder on myself than I am on anyone else. And except for people that I'm in close relationship with, because I can have high expectations on them, and then that's tough. In any case, what I've done to help with that, I've seen a psychologist every week for 10 years, and that's helped a little bit. I mean, it's helped me in all kinds of ways with the self-talk, but I've tried to take care of I've tried to, in that kind of work, you're working on, I think, your self-esteem and trying to become the best version of yourself and be the kindest version of yourself, and to learn how to love yourself. So I've worked really hard on that. But the self-talk is still there. And I think what helps the most with that, and with the emotion of shame, which is really related to negative self-talk, is to have another person to talk about it with, and to detoxify it by talking about it with someone else, and by having that other person respond with some kind of affirmation and love. And that can make it a lot easier. So the psychologist is a part of that, but also friends and your family can be a part of that. You don't want to feel alone in negative self-talk, that's for sure. And sometimes it's really hard. It's not, I don't think being hard on yourself is a bad thing. All the time, like, it's important that we do the best we can in the world. We don't have a lot of time. We want to do the best we can while we're here. But it's a bad thing when it's irrational, or when it affects your ability to function, or to be happy, or to have relationships, or anyway. Yeah.
I agree. I've had mine since the age of 5, and now I'm 52. However, at the age of 40, I gave him a name. I call him Oscar the Grouch. And when he pops up, and sir, they pop up on the daily, they pop up every hour. And when he pops up, I just shut him down. He gives me all of the negative stuff. I give him all of my positive stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to rock it out. I'm going to be awesome, and I'm going to do it. And so I shut him down. But let me tell you, sir, it's a daily struggle. It's an hour by hour struggle. And then at the end of the day, I'm drained. I'm ready for the next day. I know. I'm ready for the next day. Yes, sir. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. However, we keep on going. All right. So here is a head scratcher. So I ask all my guests, all 120 of them, and, their answers are just split right down the middle. So I want to ask you, sir. So when you are alone, can you speak without stuttering?
It depends. If I am talking completely to myself without the intention of practicing for an interpersonal interaction or practicing for a speech, once I get into a mode of some kind of interpersonal conversation, even if it's with Alexa, or even if there's something human that I'm talking to or that I'm preparing to talk to or practicing to talk to, I will stutter. If it's completely to myself or to my dog, I won't stutter. There's the switch or chemical or whatever happens in the brain. For me, that when it's interpersonal human, there.
See, and that is, interesting. When I'm alone, I still block. I still repeat. So, I talk to myself, as we all do. I go over my calendar in my head, So, oh, yes, sir. All right. So here is another hot topic. Okay. Let's say, you're in a doctor's office or dentist office or what have you. And there's an admin person who is at the desk as you walk in and they greet you. Hi, good morning. What is your name? And then you have a block. But I'm not talking a regular block. I'm talking it's a block. And so, there is a long pause. And then the admin person asks you, did you forget your name? Has that ever happened to you, sir?
Sure. Yeah.
How did you respond?
Usually I say no. I get better. I just need some time. Yeah, it happens to me all the time when I order coffee, when I do anything, right? And I used to be really embarrassed. Like I was just embarrassed by the whole experience. I would say I'm not anymore. Not in the same way. And I don't want to cause like the other person usually feels really bad. So I'm not trying to cause them embarrassment, but there also isn't really a way around it. Like I tell them, no, I stutter. It's the truth. Yes, I just need some time. I don't know. There isn't a good way to make everyone feel completely okay after that interaction. But you try to be kind. And also, you try to be kind and also protect yourself too, right?
Oh, yes, sir. And what I also do is I just educate. Yeah, like on the daily, sir, I'm educating everybody, the guy at the post office, or if I'm at a Starbucks, just whomever and wherever and whatever, I will educate. And so that way, for the next time, they have another person, they will know how to handle that person with courtesy, respect, and professionalism. So
Yeah.
All right, so here is a strong, tough question. So I ask everyone, all of the answers are split right down the middle, and I respect everyone's answer. So I want to ask you this question, sir. Do you consider stuttering a disability?
I mean, I think the answer is yes. Yes. And I think that I am grateful for what I think I am grateful for what stuttering has taught me, and I like the person who I am today in part because I've spent a life as someone who stutters. But if I could take a pill to not stutter, I totally would. Like, I've experienced enough pain. I don't need to experience anymore. and yeah.
All right, sir.
I do think it's a disability.
Okay. I thank you for that. So here is another hot topic. Let's talk about dating. As you know, dating is rough for everybody, but for us, it's a little bit more difficult. How do you navigate dating with having a stutter?
Yeah, I wouldn't say recently anyway, it's been any issue at all. And in fact, the opposite. I mean, I've been very open about it on dating apps and all those things. It's right there. It's been right there. And I would say, I tend to match with a lot of SLPs, so whatever. But but yeah, I would say, but not only that, like I would say for a lot of people, it's an attraction because it's a vulnerability that you're open about. I live in Manhattan. You're dating a lot of people who are very, very, not that education is what makes people open to disabilities or other kinds of abilities or whatever. But I don't know. I am dating in a place where I've never run into any issues with it. And I can't remember the last time that I have, or if I ever have. I know that previously when I've gone on dates earlier in my life, when I wasn't open about it, or when I was still trying to hide it in some context, I would be very anxious on dates at first. And I'm not anymore. Because the whole point is, like, you got to be who you are.
Exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
I thank you, sir. Okay, now you had a touch on this just for, you had a touch on this briefly. However, I want your full answer. So what do you think about all this new AI technology? You have Google Home, you have Alexa, and then you have Siri. Do you think this new technology is helpful or hurtful for people who stutter?
I don't know if it's hurtful, but I know that Alexa in particular was so frustrating to me that I stopped using it. I know that, the Echoes, the Alexas, they don't wait. So, like, I would try to set my alarm in the morning and it would just say, will you say that again? Or I didn't hear that. I forget. I haven't used it in a couple of years, but it drove me absolutely nuts. And I was like, if I don't experience this from people in my life, I don't need a robot to not have patience with me, right? Siri on my iPhone I use all the time, and I have found it to have a lot more patience and to wait a lot more, or to wait almost indefinitely. So I use that to set alarms, to ask what the weather is. I use that more, and it's if it's convenient, it's useful, right? If it works, it's useful. But Alexa drove me crazy.
That's how I feel about the one that has an S. I mean, they only give you like a second, and so I need at least half an hour to breathe and do my mindful meditation, my positive affirmations, my yoga stretches. And I mean, yeah, they just don't give you time. However, I have some really good news. I was a part of two collegiate studies, and they are creating an algorithm to help people who stutter with the Google Homes and the Alexa. So yeah.
Cool.
It's awesome. Okay, so what is a challenge speech-wise that you had to overcome, and how did you do it?
A challenge speech-wise that I had to overcome. I mean, it's everything. There's a challenge every day, right? And just in getting up the courage to speak as you are. I would say that's the main challenge that I've overcome is, and not totally overcome, but is allowing myself to get better and not hiding it, and not always hiding it, or not always changing words, which I still do sometimes, but not all the time. And that was the scariest and hardest thing I think I've ever done with my speech.
See, and that leads me into my next question, and it's a big one. So, do you think it is okay to stutter, or is it important to keep chasing the fluency gods?
I think it's okay to stutter. Because one of the things that I've learned and that I try to help other people with is that it's totally okay to be yourself. And that if you're trying to hide a part of yourself, or you're trying to change yourself, ultimately it's going to cause some problems for you. And you won't be at home or at peace or comfortable. So yeah, it's really important to be okay with being yourself.
You had touched on this extremely briefly, really briefly. However, I want to hear your full answer. What has your stutter taught you?
I think, for starters, it has taught me to, hopefully I am compassionate interpersonally, and I give people space to be themselves in conversation and in relationships. And I don't know if, I hope that I would be I think I'm a pretty compassionate, kind person. And I hope that I would be equally kind and compassionate if I did not stutter. But definitely I think that when you go through a lot of pain, it changes how you see the world, and it changes how you see other people in pain. And so, I would imagine it's helped me with some empathy. Although I think I'm pretty empathetic. I'd be pretty empathetic anyway. And I think one thing that I've been thinking about more recently is this idea of time and how, the most important commodity I think that we have as humans is time. We don't have a lot of time on earth, but giving another person or giving yourself the gift of saying, I'm going to give this person as much time as they need to be themselves, or I'm going to take the time that I need to be comfortable and to be myself, is a really huge thing for people who stutter and for people who don't. And the idea of time is really important and something that that stuttering has given me perspective on. So yeah.
What advice would you give to another person who stutters?
I think, people who stutter are coming from all kinds of places, so there isn't one answer that's appropriate for anyone. I think everyone's situation is unique, but I think we all want to feel comfortable with I think for everyone, whatever is going to help you feel comfortable and yourself and being able to express yourself as best you can, and whatever is going to help you feel heard, and whatever is going to help you to survive, whatever that formula is for you, probably the best thing for you.
And that is awesome advice, sir. I thank you so much. And here is our last question. So it's a big one. So if you had the opportunity to give insight about stuttering on the world stage, what message would you convey to the world?
I would say that when people who stutter are given the time and the opportunity to speak as themselves, and to be heard completely as themselves, and to be accepted as part of the rest of society, they have a lot to offer the world. And so I would want to say that it's important to not try to have people who stutter conform to the standards of time and pace that people who are fluent have. And if we can give people who stutter the space that they need to talk, what they have to offer the world is really beautiful.
Ooh, that was an awesome answer. That's a great message. Ooh, I got the goosebumps, sir. Hold on. That was awesome. That was awesome. And so I want to say this has been a huge honor, Malachi.
Me too, Pedro.
You are a huge inspiration. I mean, I am just in awe of you. You are just hashtag awesome, outstanding, and phenomenal. I want to say I thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us, because I believe there's healing in sharing. So I want to say thank you. And I have the best global listeners. This podcast is in 61 countries on 6 continents. I am truly blessed. How would they, if they wanted to to reach out to you, what would be the best way to have them do that, sir?
So really easy to, first of all, I want to say it's an honor to talk to you and to be here with you too. And your podcast and your work are so cool. And I'm really grateful for you that you had me on, and it's been really healing. You're right. It's really healing for me to share and to talk about my experience. So I really appreciate the opportunity. If people want to find me, I think the easiest way actually is to type my name into Google. That's Malachi Kanfer, Malachi Kanfer. And you can find my Instagram that way. You can find my email, my work email, that way really, really easily. You can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on YouTube. And if you want a direct email, I'm happy to say too. It's Cantor Kanfer, Cantor Kanfer at gmail.com.
All right, sir. I will have that link in the podcast show notes. I want to thank you just one more time, sir. I've had the best talk with you. I thank you. I think you are just awesome. And, down the road, how about we do this again? Because I have like 800 other questions to ask you. So.
I would love to do it again. It would be an honor.
It's all good, sir. It's all good. You are just a huge inspiration. I thank you. I hope you have an awesome day. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.